You have just realized that someone you care about or know online is suffering from an eating disorder, and you want to let them know your concerns. First, I just want to say that you're already doing a great job because you're attempting to reach out to them. Next, I want to let you know that it's very tricky to voice your concerns to someone who's suffering from poor body image. And because of that, we have to be very careful with what we say, or we can make things worse. There are going to be a few things you want to do before you talk to them. Most well-intentioned concern comments are going to come from a place of worry, fear, confusion, and even anger. It's not wrong to feel any of these things, but it can be extremely unhelpful to let these few emotions control the words that you direct to the listener. It has nothing to do with you, unless you're being extremely hateful and saying outlandish and trollish things. But it's because the mind of a person with an eating disorder can be extremely irrational. And if you have not done any research, and just let your emotions control everything, their mind can bend and warp your concerned comments and use them as the fuel they need to continue what they are doing. Basically, if you don't know how to say what you want to say, you can end up pushing them down the road even farther, which I am sure you do not want to do. Of course, I'm not an expert, and I don't pretend to be one, but I have read books from professionals as well as articles written by caregivers of eating disorder patients, and I believe it is extremely important to learn about this beforehand and take what you've learned from professionals and apply it to the conversations you will have. There are times when a subject is just too much for someone to handle, and so with any little step they make without learning anything or following guidelines, they risk causing a downward spiral that can actually end up causing the things to be harder on the person that they are trying to voice their concerns to. Now that I've explained some of the basics as to why it's important to learn how to voice your concerns, let's go over some of the things you should never say to someone who you believe to have an eating disorder. Some of these comments I'm going to show you have actually been things I have seen people say online. These commenters mean well, but these comments can be warped and twisted in the mind of someone with an eating disorder, and professionals who work with eating disorder patients say it's best to avoid them. Why are you doing this to us? Their eating disorder is something that they are going through, and they're not trying to hurt anyone else. I understand that you have a lot of emotions, but this is an unhelpful statement. Their eating disorder is not a personal attack on anyone. I'm going to give you a certain amount of time to get better. A person suffering with an eating disorder is struggling enough, and to add your terms on top of that can make them feel a world of guilt. You look terrible, gross, unhealthy. While very harsh, these words can come from a place of love and concern, but to the eating disordered mind, this also equates to sickly and unhealthy, with admirably thin. So you actually just push them to continue doing what they are doing. I never see you eat anything. A person with an eating disorder already feels judged by what they consume, and saying this will confirm that in their mind. So if you aren't a part of an eating family plan, do not say this. Do you know how hard this is for me? They are suffering too, from the inside. They hate having the disorder, but even more so, they can hate being looked at as ill or needing any help at all. They have a lot of guilt and self-hatred, so putting blame on them can start the whole cycle all over again. In a nutshell, when you say this, you can make them feel the need to turn to their coping mechanism, restricting food. When talking to someone with an eating disorder, it can often feel like dancing around the elephant in the room. Finding the right things to say can be extremely hard, so ask professionals for help. In the meantime, I'll give you information on what I have learned. First, avoid the topic at all if you're feeling angry, tired, or emotional. Find a nice environment to talk. It's best to do it in private and not in public where others can see, and avoid physical appearance specifics. I've noticed these certain behaviors. List what you've noticed that isn't based on appearance, lack of energy, forgetfulness, loss of interest in things they once liked, and it makes me feel worried. Then list your concerns and your feelings. If you're having a hard time going through anything, seek professional help. It's nothing to be embarrassed about. Always encourage them kindly to seek help and let them know that it's what it's there for. Encourage them to talk about how they feel and let them know it's safe to talk to you. You may be able to tell that someone is still going through a very hard time, and it's important that they know they're surrounded by people who have empathy, that they're surrounded by people who love them, and that they're surrounded by people who will stand by them no matter what. To reflect that to them, try saying these few things. I know this is difficult, but I'm proud of you. Show them you know what they're going through is not easy, but that you're rooting for them all the way and you're there through the bad days too. You're worth more than your eating disorder. Let them know that their situation does not define them. If you need anyone to talk to, I'm here for you. They have emotions that run wild, and so it's good to make yourself available to listen. It's also a good way to learn more about how their brain is working. I trust you, and I believe in you. This is a great way to show support. A person suffering from an eating disorder's mind can be so dark, and their illness is the only light for them, possibly for several different complex reasons that are different for each sufferer of this illness. That is why it's important to do these few things to help them reach a healthy mental state that will allow them to seek treatment. Keep trying to include them. Talk to them, engage with them, and laugh with them. They often can feel alone with their ED, and having friends to engage with is nice. Try to build up their self-esteem, perhaps by telling them what a great person they are and how much you appreciate having them in your life. Comment on their talents you notice about them. Give your time, listen to them, and try not to give advice or criticize. This can be tough when you do not agree with what they are doing to themselves and how they eat. Remember, you do not have all the answers, and you do not have to. Just making sure they know you're there for them is what's important. This can be especially hard when it feels like your friend or relative is rejecting your friendship, help, and support. Just keep trying if you are mentally able. Before I go, I would like to quickly point out that just because you have gone through an eating disorder or you are in recovery, it does not give you the right to say whatever you want to them. It does, however, make you the perfect candidate to try to sympathize with them, ask them how they're doing because you know how lonely it can feel to have an eating disorder, and you can be the perfect person to talk to about all the positives that you have felt since you finished recovery. You should also learn guidelines when giving your concerns. If you've been making mistakes when talking to someone with an eating disorder, you're not a bad person, and I hope that with what I've told you today, you can make a positive shift.